Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host, Kushalmehra, welcoming you to another discussion. So, today's discussion is titled A Minority Report. Now, why are we calling it a minority report? Since 2014, there has been a particular narrative in India. It started, if you guys remember, from the church attacks, then it went into some kinds of lynchings, then it goes into another area. There is an attempt from a section, we can call it the section within the intelligentsia of India, within a certain political class in India, that there is a sort of an assault on minorities in India. But what are the facts? What is the situation on the ground? Is everything, are many cases just skirmishes, as they say in the good old days? What is the truth? What is the fiction? And I reached out to Mr. Pai and he said, you know what, Kushal, I'll be happy to talk to you about this. I've done my own research on it. So, Mr. Pai, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Kushal.
So, Mr. Pai, let's divide today's discussion into three parts. Today, we'll be focusing obviously on the Islamic community, the Muslim community of India. So, Mr. Pai, my first topic, let's start with Islamophobia. So every time we try to have this discussion, if we look at the narrative from 2014, especially in the narrative in the last 1 year, there is this this accusation always thrown at the current dispensation and even the larger Hindu society that there is Islamophobia everywhere in the country, especially since the CAA, NRC, the whole thing has come out. Any kind of discussion on any kind of attempt to make any inroads to reach out to the other side is labeled as Islamophobia. So what are your views on the same, sir?
Kushal, this is part of the left's narrative having lost power in 2014 because they were in bed with the ancient regime to create a communal narrative to defame India and to play upon the insecurities of the Muslim community. And I think it's very important to understand all this conspiracy as it has gone. The Lutyens media, the set of people who lost power and were no longer part of the power circles, who enjoying the benefits of, the loot without being in office and were shut out, they all got together to create this narrative. And this narrative has been going on. Like you said, the church attacks, then the issues about patriotism, issues about flying the flag, and then all these issues about lynching, etc., is coalescing into this. So I think in 2019, they lost out, and then they started with a renewed vigor because they want to divide India, they want to defame India, and they want to do it. It comes out of the JNU because JNU is the hotbed of the victimhood narrative. In JNU, everybody is a victim. The faculty themselves are a victim. They teach victimhood narrative to everybody. So India is a boycotted country full of caste, misogynies, etc. They teach all that. And there is a faculty there who says that the Indian army is an occupation army in Kashmir. They rape the Indian woman, the Kashmiri woman, etc. All false allegations, because even when some incidents happen, they're all hauled up. And there is no counter to that. Being a liberal university, they must allow others to come in. They shut everybody out. Chetan Bhagat was not allowed to come. Baba Ramdev is not allowed to come. It's a shut shop run by leftists and extremists. The funny thing is, there is a student union run by the Maoist Leninist, which is an extremist, violent-prone organization who promote the Maoist. And they claim to be champions of human rights. They claim to be the people who are fighting for the students. Can anything be more crazy than this? The whole thing is topsy-turvy. And they hold the university to ransom. They create it, and they don't allow outsiders. If you read the founding principles at JNU, it was meant to be a university which will be open to different streams of thought without any ideology dominating. Now, the leftist ideology dominate, they shut down the university, they create a narrative, and the Lutyens media plays along, as we saw in the recent past when there was trouble. Then it spreads to Aligarh Muslim University, and then it spreads to Jamia Millia, which is shocking, and all of them are Islamists, all of them are people who are leftists and creating this narrative for their own reason and preying upon the insecurity of the Muslim community. Yes, the Muslim community is insecure for various reasons, and we'll explain that. And then recently, we saw the leftist media of a person who is not an Indian citizen, who worked in the Hindu and was thrown out because, he did not disclose he's not an Indian citizen. He and a particular Muslim, editor who got together to create this narrative, dragging people from the Middle East. And we suddenly found the Pakistan ISI coming in, creating fake narratives. Dr. Makarand has shown that about 400,000 tweets were suddenly put by the bots, and suddenly a narrative was created about Islamophobia in India, which is very shocking to all of us who live here. And I think suddenly it went off the radar. But this leftist, this Muslim editor, I want to call them out. I don't want to give the name. I think you know who it is. We're all playing ball for creating their own victimhood narrative. The victimhood narrative has grown because of the left, because they believe by making the Muslim victims, as they try to make the scheduled caste victims, as they try to make the tribals victim, they can set one against the other and create anger. And we create anger and division. The left hopes to come back preying on the divisions in society. They will not prosper if there is unity in society. So I think all this has come. Now, if you want to look at this, we have to look at the CAA too. What was the CAA about? You know, when the CAA came about, essentially to give for a limited period of time till 31st December 2014, refuge and citizenship to the minorities of the erstwhile undivided India and Afghanistan, where there were many Hindus who were there, many Parsis were there, Jains were there, Sikhs were there. And we've seen how the Sikhs have been driven out of Afghanistan. And these people had come here. They were stateless. They didn't get citizenship for various reasons. And they were to get citizenship provided they had come before 31st December 2014. And if they come after that, they have to go for the normal law. The Indian Citizenship Act says that if any refugee comes and he stays here for 12 years, he can apply for citizenship. It means a Muslim comes here and stays for 12 years, he can apply for citizenship. And India has been giving citizenship to Muslims who came from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, etc. The record is very sure. And the CAA does not take away that right. Even today, if a Muslim comes, you wait for 12 years, you get citizenship. If a Hindu has come after 31st December, you got to wait for 12 years. It is a carve-out for a limited purpose. They created this fake narrative that is against Article 14. This fake narrative is against the principle of secularism. It doesn't impact any Indian citizen. Now, Harish Salve was on record, which says that Article 14 is not impacted because Article 14 is based upon reasonable classification. This is a reasonable classification. It doesn't impact in secularism because there is no religion in this. It's for a class of people called minorities. Then they say discriminate against Muslims. Where is the discrimination against Muslims? I mean, Afghanistan is a Muslim majority country. Pakistan is an officially theocratic Muslim country. Bangladesh is a Muslim majority country where the minorities are hurt, and they claim to be favorable to all religions with the Hasina regime, which is very true. And they created a fake narrative. They sat there, money came from outside, and the media came there. And we saw some leftist NGOs putting their fingers there. We could see all of them in the end. And the end, it disappeared. And this narrative was expressly created at the time that President Trump was supposed to come to end with President Trump to create riots in Delhi. The riots were engineered. All of them are getting investigated. They're all going to jail, and the justice will prevail, just to defame India and to show that India is very Islamophobic. And this wrong narrative has to be set right by all of us who care about India. Kushal, let us make it clear. I think both of us and all of us who listen to this broadcast believe all of us are equal citizens of India. We are full citizens of India. There is no discrimination on basis of religion, any ethnicity, caste, etc. There cannot be discrimination. The Constitution protects us all. We have to protect the Constitution. And we had OIC standing up and reading the preamble of the Constitution to his followers. I don't think they read it much earlier. They were reading it, which is good news, which is actually good news. They were all standing by the Constitution, swearing by the Constitution. I hope many of them read the Constitution to understand what the Constitution means. And they all came with the narrative that this government will take away their rights. Now, Kushal, let us put it on record. Nobody can take away our fundamental rights. No parliament, even with 542 members, can amend the basic structure of the Constitution to take away any of the rights. What is the basic structure? The preamble, our chapter on fundamental rights, the division of power between the three organs of government, the relationship between the state and the center, and some small other things. You can't amend that. You need a constituent assembly, and that is an impossibility. So nobody can take away the rights. And they preyed on the ignorance and the possible illiteracy of the Muslims. And they were this Lutyens Delhi journalists who glorified some dadis and nanis who never knew what they were talking about. I listened to some of these young Muslim girls who said, I'm educated, I'm a lawyer. None of them could give a cogent argument. What is wrong with CAA? Even today, I'm searching for an answer. What is wrong with CAA? So this narrative has been created. I think this narrative is very wrong. It's based on falsehood. So I think we should work together to correct. Now I think, this Islamophobia is a conspiracy against India, and we must all stand up and we must protest. And let us look at data. They created this lynching narrative, Kushal. Now you look at data. There is a particular media TV channel which says that 60 people, Muslims, were hurt in the lynching. Swati Goyal is on record to show many more Hindus were also there. Why is there no concern for Hindus? Are they children of a lesser God? That only Muslims are one-sided? These are all crimes. And in every state where there was this lynching or a crime, the police got after them, filed their FIR, people were arrested. They're under trial. They will go to jail. The law will take its course. There is no big program. And it happened in the north, in the belt. And the reason is very clear. There's a huge beef trade. I estimate the beef trade to be 1 lakh crores a year. And because there's a beef trade, many of the beef traders give money to poor Muslims to go capture the cows who are wandering all over the place and bring them for butchery. In my state of Karnataka, Swati Goyal wrote about in South Kendra district, a woman who had some 45 cows. She lost everything except 5 cows because they used to come in the night and carry them away. And most of them, the locals say, came from the neighboring districts of Kerala to carry away the cows and butcher them and sell the beef, because beef is a very big trade. And even my friend told me in the South Kendra district, in many of the temples in the interiors, young women and old women sit down and watch over the temple cows to protect them, because the police in those days, before this new government, were complicit in protecting all these people who carry them out. There was this fear. So this beef trade is responsible. Suddenly they made it as if every Muslim is getting lynched, everywhere is happening, and one incident blown up. When Hindus were the victim, there was no mention of the Hindus. They were just some small print everywhere. Why this discrimination against Indian? Why is the media not standing up for the rights of every Indian? Every life is precious. It doesn't matter whether you're a Muslim or a Hindu or something like that. And this one-sided narrative has hurt the great majority of Indians. People like you and me are wondering and getting angry. Why is this thing happening in India? We are not communal. We believe in the Constitution. We believe everybody is equal. So all these narratives have been created just for political reasons, because a government came in 2014, which is not passed of the ancient regime, and they brought about change. And Kushal, if you look at the Modi government has done more for the poor of the country in the 5 years than any government has done in 5 years, right from Nehru to Indira to everybody else. The data is very clear. I've written about that. And this is all based on data. It's not political, it's not anything else. And then they created this narrative. And in the last 5 years, there is nothing the NDA government has done to say they discriminate against Muslims or anybody else. Show me one law which has been passed by parliament which discriminates against anybody else. The CAA, of course, is a law to get citizenship to people. It is not discriminatory. It has a reasonable classification. It has not taken away the rights of any Muslim from outside India to come and seek citizenship. It gives a fast track. It's a carve out for a limited period of time and expired. Countries like the US, UK, many people have done that. And there's nothing wrong in doing that. Now, Kushal, if there are any questions, I'll answer. Otherwise, I want to talk about the Constitution and how our founding fathers created a structure which gave special rights to minorities.
So I just had a follow up. There's this there is this interesting dichotomy in what in our country's discourse, where on the one hand, when you watch the media narrative, you will be seeing that Muslims are the victims. But on the other hand, there is this, I call it the Maulana matrix, where the mullahs of this country, their speeches, their words, the words that come out of their mouth, they show as if, there are these standard lines, "Arey, humne to inke upar, rule kiya tha," kind of a thing. We rule them for 1,000 years. So what I find, this is not my word, this is a very popular word now used in mainstream discourse, which is the oppression Olympics. So everybody is kind of trying to apply for an oppression Olympics. And I have to give it to the Muslim community at a global level. They have achieved the gold medal in the oppression card. But they have gone the next level. They have not only carved out their space of the oppression card, they have also the bully card. So I find the dichotomy very weird, where there is a section which openly speaks about, that they are the bully, they were our rulers. And then there is a section with the help of the leftist media which says we are the oppressed. So how did they manage both? I get them one card, okay, good. They get both the cards. That's not fair. You can't be the bully and the victim simultaneously. You have to pick one. In the Hindus, yeah, we are the bully, right? According to them.
Kushal, they took it out of the left. Please remember, the left lost out big time after the Soviet Union fell. The Berlin Wall fell. Globally, they were a spent force. The ideology had failed. They had nothing to show for all the years they ruled. China had gone communist, except that is a totalitarian state. But economically done well. The left has ruled. And I think I read an article which said much of the left leaders in Europe came together and said, now we must change the mind of the younger generation and we must go to all the universities. So in the universities of the West, they created a narrative where they are the bully and also the victims. The bully because they will not allow others to speak. They created a kind of political correctness where people who are conservative cannot come and speak, people oppose them cannot come and speak, and they put in the minds of young people that this is the way to go and you have to be politically correct. And then they also created a narrative that, the minorities and this, everybody else is the victim, and put in the mind that everybody who comes to college is the victim for various reasons. So I think the Muslim community, intelligentsia took it out of the left narrative because the left is working with them. Where does it come from? JNU, leftist. I think this Islamia or the Jamia Islamia, leftist. Then you got this AMU, leftist. All of them are leftist institution in North India, and all coming out of the Delhi cohort of failed leftists who are trying to recover. So for the left, you can be a bully because you want to threaten people and you want to blackmail them and you want to abuse them and show them up in bad light. And then you play victim. Oh, we have been beaten. We have been done. Just like that student union president of JNU did, right? You go beat up people. You prevent people from coming to class. You prevent people from signing up for new courses, and you shut down the university. And then you go cry victim. We got beaten up. We got this happened, that happened. And the media laps it up. So the thing is come out of that. And as for the mullahs are concerned, I think the mullahs are responsible for keeping the Muslim community behind in India. Wherever religious leaders take over, because religious leaders believe in being medieval and conservative. Please remember in Europe, the Dark Ages ended with the Reformation, with Martin Luther protesting against the Holy Roman Empire. And that led to protests, that led to Protestantism, which said that we don't require a church, individuals have the right to read the Bible and to propagate, and they created other denominations. And the whole theory of separation of state and religion, state and church came out of that. When you talk about the state and church being separate, it was the Catholic Church which had to be separate because they were hand in glove with the monarchs. The Pope used to crown the monarchs, call him the Holy Roman Emperor. The Pope had the right because the Pope said, I am the representative of God on earth and I will give the divine right. And the kings all rule by divine right. And that is broken. And that is broken by the Reformation, by the Protestant movement. And that led to the flowering of the Enlightenment. That led to the growth of Europe because the medieval Dark Ages were gone. So whenever religious leaders have suzerainty over your mind, when they control your mind, they take you backwards. For all religions, it's not about Islam, it's not about anything, it's for all religions. When did the Islamic civilization do well? 12th, 13th century, correct? When there were great debates about interpretation. Till I think one school of thought came into being and they shut everybody out, and then it has been a downhill throughout. In the 12th, 13th century, they were liberal, they were flowering, and they had great discoveries in all areas of science and technology. They took the sciences and mathematics of India, translated that into Arabic or into their own languages, and that went to Europe. So when the Enlightenment started, Europe took that over and put that into Latin, and that's how we had the Reformation and changes come. So I think, the mullahs are responsible for this, and you can see what they've done in Pakistan. Pakistan was richer than India in the 1670s. Imran Khan laments about that. See what they have done. After Zia-ul-Haq brought in the Sharia and gave leeway to all the fundamentalists, Pakistan has gone down. And look at what happened in Bangladesh before Sheikh Hasina. When the military ruler, General Zia, was there, what did he do? I think, he brought in fundamentalism and he brought it down. In the last 15 years, Bangladesh has done very well. And see what happened to Afghanistan in the Taliban. So wherever there's a fundamental regime. And now look at Saudi Arabia. What has Saudi Arabia done? Prince Salman is opening up. The Saudis have sent all the young people to America to have a liberal education. They're all been educated. Yes, they follow Wahhabism, but they're easing out because they believe that the future lies in innovation in technology and not in medieval thoughts or things like that, because the world has changed and they have to live in the world. They're also reforming. Look at the UAE. UAE has a liberal ethos. Dubai has the liberal ethos. They're very liberal. They keep religion in the back and they're done very well. So all the Islamic countries who are done well, who are economically strong, are reforming, and the people who are coming into the mullah fold, they're the people who are going back. And look at what is happening in Indonesia. When the mullahs are becoming stronger, Indonesia is becoming less liberal. Indonesia is the most liberal Muslim country all around the world. So I think these are some of the issues that have come, and that's why the different parts play the bully and they play the victim. I mean, the left is behind that. We can see it very carefully all around the world. Islamophobia came from the leftist thoughts, because the left got together Muslims to tell them they are the victims. That happened. Look at Charlie Hebdo. Charlie Hebdo was irreverent to everybody. At least the French were very secular, that they were irreverent to everybody, right? And India, they tried to create this narrative about M.F. Hussain. M.F. Hussain had no guts to look at other religions and to paint what he did. Yes, he was born in a different culture. He was born in a different time. We sympathize with him because, he was doing what he thought was right. Yes, he had his point of view. It is sad that he had to leave this country. But then people pointed out, and you can take artistic liberty and freedom, provided you are equal to everybody. If you take one-sided, some people are going to protest. And that is a sad point of time in India, that when he had to leave. But whatever it is, you see what happened to Charlie Hebdo. When Charlie Hebdo happened, the terrorism happened, some of the media in India were on the side of the perpetrators, on the sides of the jihadis, because they're saying, oh, you got to be very sensitive. You got to be there. When they abuse the Hindu gods, when they abuse Hindus all over, make fun of them, it's all fine. It's all fine. That's the way it is. But when it comes to other religions, you have to be sensitive. You have to be sensitive for all religions. You have to respect the wishes of people. You can be irreverent up to a point for all religions. If you are there, people respect you, but they play sides. I think it comes out of that culture, Kushal. So let us talk about the constitution, Kushal. Shall we?
Yeah. So I saw that was my next follow-up question. That was going to be, so where did things go wrong for the Muslim community? So you can take it up from the constitution now.
Kushal, 1946, Direct Action Day by the Muslim League in Calcutta, 5,000 people dead. It was engineered. Hindus were butchered in Calcutta. Sukravadi's government, Sukravadi was running the government. He made sure the police didn't help and all that. And that saw the violence that led to partition. Partition was extremely violent. About 1 crore people had to shift their houses. Maybe 10 lakh people were butchered in the west, in Punjab, and in the east, in Bengal. It was very traumatic. At that point of time, the Constituent Assembly was in play, and the Constituent Assembly had debates. And our founding fathers were thinking, we've gone through the horrors of partition. The Muslims have their own homeland for whatever reason, both in the east and the west, but we have a very large Muslim population. These are ordinary citizens. Many of them did not have anything to do with the Muslim League or the extremist views. I mean, they were here living as neighbors with others, and you can't force them out, and they did not want to go because they felt that India was much better than going to a place where only Islam was dominant. But whatever it is, our founding fathers put some special rights in the Constitution. Article 29 and 30 gives special rights to minorities. What minorities? Linguistic and religious minorities. All right? But what has happened? Because of communal politics of the ancient regime and others, only religious minorities get special rights. So most governments, state and center, have a Department of Minority Affairs. Now, Kushal, I'm a linguistic minority. I am supposed to be protected under Article 2930. But as a Konkani, I don't get any benefits. Nothing. There are no benefits for me. I can start my institutions, but I have no economic benefits. The Muslim gets economic benefits. I think the state and the center spend something like 40 to 50,000 crores a year on minority affairs. The center has a 5,500 crore budget, and all states spend money. And this is for the Muslims. And it's been done deliberately to make sure that the Muslims feel that, we are considerate. So they got special rights. Now show me one constitution in the world where minorities got special rights. Written in the constitution. Does the UK have it? Do the French have it? Do the Europeans have it? Do the Americans have it? There is no country in the world that I know, unless you can enlighten me, where special rights are given. And money is spent out of the budget for somebody called minorities, and there is discrimination in favor of Muslims and religious minorities, discrimination against 80% of people who are Hindus. Now look at the population. At the time of independence, Muslims are 9% of India's population, 3 crores out of 33 crores. Today, out of 137 crores, Muslims are about 20 crores. Population has gone up from 9% to 15%. Will the population of a minority grow so rapidly if they're oppressed and they don't have a place? They do have a place, and they're growing. And if you go around India today, just visual observation, I don't have data, we see a lot more mosques all over India than they were there 10, 15 years ago. Money is coming in from the Middle East, money is coming from everywhere, they're building the mosque. So is there any suppression of religious freedom? There is no suppression of religious freedom. Many of them come out to pray on Fridays in the street, they occupy the street, they break the law, and people keep quiet. Why do people keep quiet? I stay in a house in Bangalore. Every day, there are some 3 or 4 mosques who read out the azan 5 times a day. We all live in peace. We all live in peace. Everybody lives in peace. 20 crore Muslims with 1 crore, 100 crore Hindus live in peace all over. There are fights. Yes, there will be fights. And the fights are because there are extremists in both sides, small numbers in the Hindu side, who believe that there has to be some kind of a fight and a difference. And there are local politicians who try to create fights for political reason because they want votes. These are communal politics at the local level. But there's no national program. There is nothing else. And most of the governments have been protecting the Muslims against the Hindus. And if the Muslim does a crime, his name is not there in the media. Just so and so get a crime. Hindu does it, the Lutyens media blows it up. People do that. In the state of West Bengal, you can't hold the Durga Puja. But they never not allowed the Muslims to hold their, procession for the Muharram or, read out the Azan. There'll be no discrimination. And there you had a Mufti who threatened a very leading political leader. Nothing happened to him. And all over we read about the Muftis or the Maulanas talking and saying, I'll pay so much money to kill somebody, this threats. What happened? Nothing happens. Are they been arrested? Extreme issues have been done. So we have a one-sided legal way, political way, which has been done. So now, in the constitution, some of the interesting things have happened. Cow slaughter, banning cow slaughter was debated. The Hindus have been against cow slaughter for a long period of time. Let's not debate it right or wrong. It's the Hindu sentiment. And they believe that it's got nothing to do with your eating food or whatever it is. And let's remember, in the land of Islam, there were no cows. There were no cows in Saudi Arabia when Islam came. I don't know about Iran and other places, but Persia was a very different country. So where Islam was born, there were no cows in the desert. So it is not that cow slaughter is essential for anybody, but whatever it is. There was a debate about cow slaughter, and the founding fathers felt, look, cows are eaten by a certain section of Indians. We should not come in the way. Let us look at that later. And let us put in the dietary state principles of state policy. Then there was a question of debating about personal law. At the time of freedom, every community had their own personal law because the British decided that's the way it has to be. So there was a debate. And there was a debate about the need for a uniform civil code. But the founding fathers felt it is premature. We are suffering from the trauma of partition, and we should not do anything to hurt the Muslim community or the minorities. So let us park it. They parked it in the dietary principles of state policy. And Dr. Ambedkar, I think in 1951, early 1952, came out with the Hindu Code Bill to reform Hindu law. Of course, there was an uproar. The conservatives protested that. And sadly, Nehru did not stand by Dr. Ambedkar, even though the constitution brought in reform in the Hindu practices. Untouchability was banned in the constitution. And that's a good thing that happened. We are creating a modern state. So in 1956, after the elections, we had the Hindu law being amended, marriages, succession, divorce, etc. So Hindus could not follow their personal law. Polygamy was banned, etc. And now we had, over the period of time, even girls in the Hindu community getting rights. I think about 15 years ago, the Supreme Court said that girls have the right to ancestral property just like the boys. So the last vestige of discrimination was done. But Muslim personal law has not been touched. Now, in a majority country where there's a written constitution, there is a republic, and we claim to be secular, you can't have personal laws because the constitution rights have to be given to everybody. So Muslim personal law continues till the Supreme Court came down hard in Tibal Talaq, and we have to change the law, which is very good, because the rights of the constitution have to be given to everybody. And the Supreme Court has said very clearly, I think if you read the Sabarimala case too, that wherever fundamental rights are in conflict with religion, with any religious practices or social practices, fundamental rights have to prevail. Fundamental rights have to prevail. That's the way our constitution is. That is our republic, and that's the way we got to live. So even there in cow slaughter, in uniform civil code, we have been very considerate, and we have let things be, even though the time has come when we need a uniform civil code. Many modern Muslim Islamic countries, called Islamic by the very nature, have much better laws than we have as regards personal laws, because even countries in the neighborhood like Bangladesh, Pakistan have made sure that women get more rights. And even Turkey after 1921, they abolished the caliphate, and they brought in secular laws. So I think we need that. So my thesis is India has treated its Muslim community fairly, and it's given them superior rights. It's spending more money on them. It discriminates against the majority Hindu community. The Hindu population has come down from 85% to 79%. And I think it's important for us to understand that. A lot of money is spent on the Muslim community. But Kushal, the sad thing is, at the time of freedom, the Muslim community were economically, socially much better off than they are today. I'm making a statement. Now, do I have data what they were in 1947? I don't have data, but I know what they are in today because I got a lot of data. So I'll come to that in the subsequent round. On now, if you look at how minorities treated in that Muslim states of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh, you see a sad story. In Afghanistan had 200,000 Sikhs. Now I think only 1,000 are left. The Taliban is killing them and driving them away. Pakistan's, in Pakistan, officially they're carrying away young Hindu girls, and the courts are saying that if you carry off a Hindu girl and you marry her and convert her, she can't go back to her parents, even if it's illegal, even if she's a minor. And now some brother or some peer or some eminent, some prominent political leader in the Sindh is carrying off 650 young Hindu girls in the Sindh province have been carried over the 5 or 6 years. And Imran Khan pontificates and points towards India. There's so much of atrocity. Temples are being destroyed and Hindus are being hurt. And then if you look at Bangladesh, the government is very secular, the government is proactive, but you have these fundamentalists there who take it out on the Hindus and kill them and butcher them. And you have a lot of them who have come to India. And these are the kind of countries that have been created. Now, India has stood by the constitution. India has protected its minorities, given them rights. Yes, there are incidents, but the incidents are not programmed. They're crimes. And in all cases, people who committed them have been caught. Now, we are all together. There is no discrimination under law against Muslim anywhere. For anybody to cry Islamophobia and Indians be having this is rubbish. Total rubbish, a bunch of lies. Yes, there are incidents, but incidents cannot be blown out of proportion. You had the Lutyens Delhi who were glamorizing, glamorizing the terrorist. A young terrorist who went and killed panchayat members in cold blood. They were glamorizing him. They were glamorizing. I don't understand how Lutyens Delhi, JNU, others can glamorize killers. You cannot glamorize a killer under any circumstances, but you can't kill anybody. You can't be violent. That's unnecessarily civilized society. I wonder sometimes whether they are civilized. It all comes of the victimhood narrative. You are a victim, and then you must do this. Now, Kushal, what happened after 1950 when the constitution came? In 1952, I think we had a first election. It went well. The Congress party came. Nehru did well. 1957, second election, the Congress edifice was cracking. And that's the time when Muslims were getting stampeded into voting, saying that we will protect you, we'll take care of you, because the fears of partition were there. And the so-called Hindu parties were set up as communal, and the divide started. Then after that, in most elections, the Muslims have been stampeded, and the political parties tried to divide the Hindu community. It came to the fore in the Mandal party. So in the Mandal commission, after the Mandal commission, after the Congress had a split. And in the Mandal commission, you found very clearly that all these new parties that came, Samajwadi party, Lalu's party, they broke up the Hindu community into castes, stampeded the Muslims into voting for them, creating a bloc to get 34-35% votes, and then came to power. So Muslims were given this false theory that everybody is against you, will protect you. They were not protected. The economic standing came down. The mullahs were all taken up by these people, treated, and we don't know what they did to them. And then this fear psychosis, insecurity was used to drive them and to vote for them. So the Mandal Commission, so this has been the way this is done. And Muslim leadership has failed thoroughly to keep the Muslims together, and Muslim economic, social indications has to come down. Now look at the Sachar Committee. The Sachar Committee set up by the UPA pointed out how from independence onwards, Muslim representation in the government, Muslim representation in other areas of economic activity in the colleges has come down as a percentage. And Muslims are really getting in a situation when they are below what were originally called the backward classes, or what were parts of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe community. And I'll give you data in the next chapter. So Sachar Committee also pointed out a very eminent Muslim leader with a close friend of the ancient regime told me that, look, we're all with the ancient regime, but we're shown up as Muslims, but we are not benefited. Muslim community has not benefited. They have not come up in social standing. They have not come up economically. A small percentage has come up, which are being propped. So I think the history of the Muslim community after independence has been a history of political parties trying to stampede them, creating blocks, and the middle class educated Muslims not standing up, falling victim to the left, and creating now, in the last 5 years, victimhood narratives. So we need to change all that, and we need to make sure that Muslims come up and take their rightful place as equal and full citizens of India.
Yeah, but here's the problem, Mr. Pai. When we talk about them taking their rightful place as citizens of India, we need to offer them tangible solutions. So, Mr. Pai, what are the solutions? What are we supposed to do to make sure that Muslims actually do find their rightful place? So, first, before that, I actually would request you to do share those points of the Sachar Committee report. So, what were the Sachar Committee report points? What were the observations of the Sachar Committee, and what were the suggestions of the Sachar Committee?
See, suggestion of the Sachar Committee was that Muslims should have a special schemes to get them up. We should have schools set up in Muslim majority community, and we should involve them with particular groups, etc. A set of recommendations. But that is old, because that is based on the 2001 census. Let me give the latest data, and then we can discuss what we need to do. All right?
Sure.
Now, let us look at social groups faring in higher education. All right? Now, if I look at this data from 1819, this is data published by the MHRD called the Higher Education Report, okay? Annual Survey of Higher Education. The SC/ST population, as per 2011 census, that the latest, is 16.6% of population, but 14.9% of students in colleges all across India are members of the SC community, 14.9%. Wow. And ST are about 8.6, 5.5%. OBC is 40% of population, 36% of students. 36% of students today, they all come up. Muslims are today 15% of population, only 5.2%. 15%, 5.2. SC is 16.6, 14.9. OBC is 40, 36. Look at the difference. Look at this difference in number of students being in college. All right. And then if you look at other minorities, they're doing quite well. The general merit number has come down because the general merit is 13% of population. They have 35% of 35%. And the Muslim community between 2012-13, however, has gone up from 4.2% to 5.2%. The SC has gone up from 12.8% to 14.9%, and ST has gone up from 4.4. So they have gone up by a full 25% between 2012-13. And their enrollment has increased by 7.7% a year from 2012-13 till 2018-19. So if you look at all communities for the last maybe 7-8 years, they have gone up, but they remain behind, massively behind. Now, let us look at literacy. There's some good news too, because they have been backward, but there is some good news too. If you look at the National Family Health Survey 2002-2003 and 2013-2015, we find that Muslim literacy for men has gone up from 70% to 80%. For women, it's gone up from 49% to 64%, 29.7% increase in 10 years. It should be more now. But if you look at all communities who are behind, for example, behind, you find that the Muslims are the least literate. For example, Hindus are 68%, Muslims are 64%, Christians are 80%, Sikhs are 81%. So and you find that Muslims are behind, but they come up in literacy. There's still a long way to go. And if you look at fertility, because we keep hearing that Muslims are producing more children and all that, because literacy has gone up by 29% between 2003-5 and 2013-15, we find the fertility of Muslim has come down from 3.4% to 2.62. The whole of India today is about 2. In 2013-15 is 2.18. The Hindus were 2.13. The Muslims' fertility has come down by 22.9%. The highest decline among all groups, because more Muslim girls were getting educated. So there is hope. They are changing, but they have to change more. But none of this victimhood narrative will put this, that they are behind, they are trying to come up, they require help. And if you look at Jains, since, Jains, fertility is only 1.2. They're below replacement of 2.3. And maybe in 50 years, I don't know whether Jains will be around. They're not producing enough children. The Sikhs are 1.58. So all communities have seen a dramatic fall in in fertility because of higher literacy and higher economic growth. And now, if you look at the next thing about Muslim states, let me give you something about Muslim states. All right, Muslims in states. Now, Jammu and Kashmir is India's first and only Muslim majority state. Am I right? Now, in
Yeah.
J&K, Muslims form 68% of population. All right. The gross enrollment rate for all young people in colleges in Jammu and Kashmir is 30.9, but it's only 18% for Muslims. Only 18% of 18 to 23 go to college in the Muslim majority state of Jammu and Kashmir, which has been ruled by Muslim parties ever for a very long period of
Yeah.
time. And
For
we
the
had
longest
Muslim
period.
leaders. Yeah, even for Muslim leaders. Even the Congress were there, they were Muslim leaders, right? They have not taken care of the community. And if you look at the others who are non-Muslim, 32% of population, 57% of the young people from 18 to 23 go to college. Now, what is the sign
Wow.
of an oppressed community? 57%. Because, the enrollment is 30% for all. Muslims are only 18% despite being 68%. Now, if you look at, all states, all other states, even there, we find it very being poor. Even Kerala, which talks about being a very advanced state, the Muslim GER is less than the general GER. So there are some deep issues that we have to talk about in the next episode. So now, if you look at all this, what does it all show? It shows that even when we have a Muslim majority state, the leaders don't take care, the Muslims don't educate them. They prefer to pander to the mullahs, pander to very medieval people who claim, and they play the victimhood card. Because playing the victimhood card gets them more money. In Jammu and Kashmir, I think India spends more per capita than any other state, excluding if you take away the police or the army, they spend more money, more of our taxpayers' money is going. And we have Article 370, where we gave them special rights for a temporary period. It has now been removed, which is very good. And the rights were used to discriminate against the SC, ST, against the
Yes.
OBC, against women. And they discriminated against them. And a small clique took away all the benefits that they're supposed to get. And a small clique ruled Kashmir. So I think it's important to understand all this. And in Kashmir, the Kashmiris had the right to go across to the rest of India. At least I think 10 million Kashmiris, not 10 million, maybe 10 lakh Kashmiris are all over India. They buy property, they leave, but you can't go buy a property there. So this kind of discrimination is there because, in India said, we'll take care of your concerns that you had. And the concerns were made, because you people on political party wanted to come to power. So all these, what does all this data show, Kushal? The data shows very clearly that India has given special rights to Muslims, discriminate against the majority community. India spends a lot of money on Muslim welfare, especially as minorities. India discriminates on the basis of religion because linguistic minorities who are supposedly protected in Article 29-30 don't get the same economic benefits that religious minorities like Muslims do. And for the last many years, they've been used as pawns and vote banks by various political parties and the left to create a victimhood narrative, prey on any insecurity, pander to the mullah community who claim to be the leaders, and to stampede them into voting for them. And their community, socially, economically, and politically, has not grown to the extent they should. But the ordinary people of this country live with their Muslim neighbors peacefully all across the country. There are crimes. There are crimes on both sides, Hindus and Muslims. There are problems. There are crimes on Muslims. People talk about the 2002 Gujarat riots. I read a State Department statement which said there are maybe 1,075 people who were killed in the riots and 750 Muslim, 275 Hindus. Now, if it was a program against the Muslim, why were the Hindus killed? Many of the Hindus were shot by the police and they were killed. It's the right gone bad. And all these people try to corner Narendra Modi to say he is this, he is that. We had the 67 MPs or so write a letter to the US government not to give a visa. I mean, we had the left and certain section of Indians and evangelicals in America tried to deprive him of the visa. But if you look at all the data, it was a riot. The riot went bad. There is no talk about Godhra. And this kind of a blatant discrimination against the majority community hurts people. Yes, it was a riot. The perpetrator should be punished. The Supreme Court set up a special investigation task force because people said, oh, it's not being investigated. They did not find anything against Narendra Modi. But still they accuse him, they go after him. What does this show? It shows that this is a political conspiracy by the left, certain cases of people. just to defame people, defame India, not go by the rule of law. Now the Ayodhya verdict came. The Ayodhya verdict was essentially a property dispute, and the Supreme Court said so. And the case came, everybody said we'll abide by the Supreme Court. Now what did the left do? What did some of the lawyers belong to the left do? What did other people do? No, Supreme Court is wrong. When the Supreme Court gives a decision you like, oh, it is a great court. When the Supreme Court gives a decision independently that you don't like, oh, they are wrong. This is the kind of narrative. Then you had Afzal Guru. For Afzal Guru, I think 4 times the Supreme Court heard it again and again. It also heard at midnight or thereafter, just before he was hanged, and found him guilty. There is nothing to change. And he was killed for being part of the conspiracy to attack the Indian Parliament. In any other country, the rule of law will prevail. But what do they hold today? They create a victimhood narrative. He's a victim. There is no evidence. And many of these leftists and some of these demented minds write about India. One demented mind writes, oh, India is getting prepared for a genocide. Now, do these people who claim to educate know what a genocide is? A genocide, the deliberate extermination of a race. Can anything be done to 200 million Muslims? Is there a genocide in India? Is there anything happening in India on a large scale? Now, one crime cannot be a genocide. They misuse words. They blow it up all over the place. And the leftist NGOs in Europe and other try to corner because they all want to go get more funds. And the NGOs in India try to create this narrative to go to Europe, go to the evangelical groups, go everywhere and try to get more money. So my submission to you, Kushal, and to your viewers is that, look, time has come for an introspection by the Muslim community, which we'll discuss. India has taken care of its Muslims, given them special facilities, make sure that they get scholarship. In the last 5 years, the NDA has given much more scholarship, much bigger numbers than in the previous 5 years. There's no discrimination in the 5 years of the NDA government, which many people claim to be a Hindu government. And yes, the Hindus have massively supported this government. But under Hindu rule, or when a government claims to be Hindu or is identified as Hindu, there has been no discrimination. The constitution has been upheld. We have an independent judiciary. We have a media which goes the other way to highlight every small thing that happens to Muslims, which covers up when the Muslims create crimes or murder Hindus in a very large number of ways. They shut them out. And we see it happen all the time. Even in the Delhi riots now, when both the Hindus and Muslims did it, they tried to cover up the Muslims. When AAP councillor was caught with arms, they tried to cover up everything, create the narrative that is only one part of the community is in danger. So I think we have to accept all this evidence and now discuss possibly what should we do, what is the way forward for the Muslim community.
Yeah, what are the solutions?
Citizens of this country. See, Kushal, in my view, the time has come for the Muslim educated class, for the Muslim intelligentsia, and for the Muslim middle class, and there is a fair amount of Muslim middle class, to come together, sit down and discuss what they need to do for their community. Because, please remember, all of us at the core of our being are part of some community or some group. I'm a Konkani. I have a identity as a Konkani. I am a Gauda Saraswat. I have identified as Gauda Saraswat. I'm a Kannadiga. I'm a Bengalorean. And I'm a South Indian. I'm a Indian. So there are hierarchies, right? So all of us are, Indians, and then we have our own identity. They have to come together as a community and decide what they have to do. In my view, they have to create heroes out of highly educated people as role models. The Muslim community requires role models. The Scheduled Caste Committee of Dr. Ambedkar is a role model. Dr. Ambedkar is one of the greatest scholars India has produced. A double doctorate from OCS University in Economics. He's a learned man. He has possibly read much more about India and economics and other factors than anybody else. He's a learned man in the law. He is, first of all, a great intellectual, a great scholar. So we need people in the Muslim community who are great scholars, who are educated, accomplished people to be heroes. Dr. Hamid of Sipla is a hero to me. They're all heroes, right? But they don't claim they're the Muslim hero. They are all India heroes. They are heroes for everybody. I don't want to name other names. I think we know them. So first of all, the community has to come to that. Second, they have to focus on higher education. We cannot have a country where a part of a population, 15%, is so behind in higher education. They're the only community behind. 15% of population, 5.2% of students. Everybody else is going ahead. So they must focus on higher education. And there's a hunger for higher education. We have seen enrollment grow from 12-13 to 18-19 by 7.7% a year. And the girls are 7.8% a year. More Muslim girls want to go to college. They want to do their masters and PhD. Many of them possible to escape getting married off, but much more because the mothers have realized the benefit of education. They require help. Third, Government of India should give much more scholarship to Muslims. They are behind. They must give them scholarship to the minority affairs. Maybe they must double the scholarship. And because there are enough schools, enough colleges, they have to double. They have to help them, give them special training to get into the IAS, special training to get into government service, special training to get into IITs and elsewhere else. And I'm saying this loudly and clear because as an Indian, I believe all communities should be brought up. And any
Yes.
community falling behind should get special benefits. Our taxpayers' money should be used for the benefit. And they must do that. And the next, they must come and remove this victimhood narrative. Because this victimhood narrative vitiates the social dialogue. Now, when you start saying, I'm a victim, I'm this and that, and like you said, you can't be a bully and a victim, people know he's lying. And when you try to defame India, you call people from the Arab world on your TV channel and then say, oh, Islamophobia, this happening, trying to defame India, trying to create a big lie when there's no lie. You fall into the prey of the ISI of Pakistan, which tries to create social media furore. You become friends with Imran Khan, who is an arch jihadi, and try to defame India and join with him and try to glamorize him. You glamorize terrorists in Kashmir. You are not showing you are standing for the country. You are playing games. And I think they must stand up, isolate all these people, and say very clearly that this is not acceptable. And then, lastly, they must debate within what is the role of religion. Of all the religions in the world, Islam is possibly the most comprehensive. It dictates everything that you do in your day-to-day life because it came up at a particular point in time. But all across the world, the secular aspect of life is getting more prominence. Higher education. Why has Saudi Arabia sent so many students to America to get study? Why has Saudi Arabia invested in getting the best universities to set up in Saudi Arabia? Why has the Middle East got so many good global universities? Why are all those countries spending enormous amount of money building up museums, cultural artifacts, opening up their country? And they made sure their religion is protected, the religious rights and everything is done. People can be religious, but they kept the secular aspect of higher education, jobs, community separate, and they are not worse for the fair. They're doing very well. And Saudi Arabia can be an example for these people. Yes, a theocratic state, the Wahhabism is there, but they're trying to ease out. There are many practices which are not in consonance with normal features of human rights. And Muslims in India have all the rights, much more rights than a possibly citizen of Saudi Arabia. And they have all these rights, they must use it. So when they do it, why don't they focus on education, training them up, John? And lastly, Kushal, this decade is a decade of technology, of innovation, artificial intelligence, and
So
this is a
true.
decade of digitization. And there is more. Is the Muslim community, young people empowered to enter that? Are they getting the right kind of education exposure to be part of that? Because they don't, they'll be even further left behind. There are, India graduates 90 lakh young people every year, 90 lakhs. There is keen competition for jobs. There is keen competition for jobs. And there's keen competition for jobs because, formal jobs are lesser than that. HR committee said most Muslims are in informal jobs. There are not enough informal jobs. Why they're not enough formal job? Because they don't have education. I don't think there's no discrimination. Because I know in many industries where I talk to people, I talk to HR, I dealt with hundreds and thousands of HR people, they don't discriminate. They have a test, they look at you, they look at your marks, they hide you. There are just not enough Muslims applying for good jobs. There are not enough Muslims accomplished academically to be in the top 20%, 25% of your class. And I think that is the problem. And so there are not enough Muslim doctors, not enough Muslim IAS officers. And the one who have passed through are brilliant. We had the first rank going to a Kashmiri sometime back in the IAS. They're as smart as anybody else. They're as brilliant as anybody else. They're as patriotic as anybody else. They are as nationalists for India as anybody else. They are Indians like you and me. We're all together. There can be no discrimination. We're all together. And all of us want them to prosper equally like anybody else. We don't want discrimination in society. We don't want anybody to be left behind. But in a large country where there is competition for everything, the community has to come together. The community has to put money into education. The community has to go to government, whether any government by any political party, and say, we want more scholarship. And they got to make sure, they ask the government, in Muslim majority districts where there is less literacy, start more colleges, government colleges, maybe
Very
only
true.
girls-only colleges, because they're still conservative. In many parts of India, the rural areas, parents, Hindu or Muslim, are conservative. They don't like co-ed. I had an argument with a woman member of a committee I headed for education who said, no, we should have co-ed. I said, if you have co-ed, conservative people may not send their young girls. They don't want to mix with boys. That is true. Let them get educated. The next generation will mix more freely. They'll be much more assured. And today, any Muslim woman is educated, will always educate a child. All mothers are the same. Whether you are a Muslim or a Hindu or a Christian, once you are educated, you will prosper. We have seen when the Muslim girl child is educated, illiteracy has gone up, fertility has come down. The Muslim girl child is going to college much more because possibly their mothers are telling them. So we need to create an India which was done by our founding fathers, which is there in our constitution, which protects us all. And we have to do that. And we have to remove discrimination in the religious laws of any community which discriminates against women. The time has come for India to look at a uniform civil code which makes sure that every Indian, irrespective of gender, irrespective of religion, irrespective of any social grouping, get the same rights as anybody else, and the rights are protected. Behind that lies the religion. Nobody is saying that your religious practices should change or anything like that, but you can't have medieval based laws. The laws should change for everybody, and that is something that India has to look to become a modern 21st century state where everybody prospers. And this Islamophobia and this kind of fake narratives should be exposed, and it should stop.
All right, Mr. Pai, I'm just going to take a few questions from the viewers who are watching it live. So Manasa Manjunath says, isn't it Hindu phobia that the left is spreading under the guise of crying Islamophobia? Do you think that is the case?
I totally agree. I believe Indians are discriminated against, Hindus are discriminated against in this country. The media discriminates. When you stand up as a Hindu, they say you are communal. You stand up as a Muslim, you say, oh, he's a proud Muslim. This kind of discrimination by Lutyens Delhi and particularly Lutyens media. It is something that is there in Delhi, Kushal. I don't find it in Bombay. I don't find it in Bangalore.
Yeah.
I don't find it in Bangalore. It's only in Delhi. And somehow the Delhi media tends to dominate because the English media, they're all there.
Yeah.
And it is the JNU, the political system, the mandal politics, and everybody wanting to create this victimhood narrative to get attention. So I think the Hindus are discriminated against in this country. The religious laws have been amended. It's all become very secular. The temples are taken over by the government and run. And a lot of money. The Tirupati temple has 7,000 crores. Why can't, in fixed deposit, why can't they spend the money on Hindu religion? Why can't they start more schools for the poor Hindus? Why can't they give scholarship for poor Hindus? Because all the money comes out of the Hindus. It is a institution of the Hindus. So why can't you do that? You should do that. But, government controls that. Government controls temple. Can you believe it? The communist, godless people sit and control temples in Kerala because the Communist Party comes to power. And they're the one. And even when you sit on the board, a Sabrimala temple or the other temples, you're supposed to protect the religion. You're not supposed to be anti-religion. And in the Sabrimala, you had a bigoted Muslim woman try to come and show something, a very, very, terrible person. And others were coming from far away just to, put, wound a knife into the Hindu heart. So I think, yes, there is Hindu phobia in the Lutyens media, not in other parts of the country. Not in other parts of the country. I think the Bangalore media is very good. The Bombay media is very good. Is there.
Fair enough. So Sam asks, it's very interesting. You was talking about AI and IT uses too, but this is in regards to the media. So Sam asks, why aren't we using AI to counter the ISPR bots on social media? There are so many fake news articles that are used to bolster these fake narratives. Don't you think? And I'll add one more line to that. Actually, it's a very good question because it harms our social fabric too, right? These articles that are over sensationalized and they try to create rifts within our society.
Kushal, there are a set of people who want to create this. They are doing everything else. Now, the opposition for that from the Indian community has still not come up because Indians don't discriminate. Indians don't see it that way. So when you see all this kind of thing, you feel very strange. You feel very strange. Why is it happening? You're shocked because your mind is not to go after anybody. The feeling of, you will not do wrong if your feeling of doing wrong doesn't come to mind. So all these people who do it have been driven from Pakistan. Pakistan is India's enemy. There's no doubt about that. They're being done by the ISI. They're done by a set of people who want to attack others. And they're done by a set of people. They're all financed by a certain group of people. I think, you can investigate and find out yourself. I think the time has come for Indians to come together and counter this use of technology through bots and other social media whenever it is anti-Indian. What is anti-Indian? When it goes against the values that we all hold dear. When it goes against the values that is enshrined in a constitution of equality, of fair treatment to everybody. And I think when it goes against the truth. So we should expose all of them. I think Dr. Makarand exposed that. They said there are 400,000 likes or something like that which came and suddenly disappeared. And we should write to Twitter and social media. We should take it up. Why can't we have an alt news to point out all these fake things? We have an alt news done by the left and others who are anti-Hindu, who are Hindu phobic, who try to create a one-sided narrative. And a friend of mine who ran an Alts News during the elections tried to say that the Hindu community is very communal, and Swati Goyal exposed them. They were doing a one-sided narrative, not counting the Muslim atrocities against the Hindus, only counting one way and trying to say this is communal. I protested to him, and suddenly he stopped because he was being financed by some people. And I think I want to stop there. I don't want to say who financed him or what he did. Suddenly after the election, it stopped. So during the election, all these people came. Now, George Soros also has come out and said, we're going to put money. And you see many of the people financed by George Soros trying to play this communal victimhood card in Delhi. The names are all gone public. So I think it's time for people to come together and expose these people.
So Jemin actually made an observation, and he also kind of asked a question. He's like, the problem with the victim card of the Muslims is that it's not just local, it's global. So it doesn't matter whichever regime is power, there is this tendency to treat crimes because of this Muslim victimhood narrative with kid gloves. So how do we fix that? Well, in my opinion, the answer was already given by Mr. Pai Jemin, but I'll leave it to him. I think he did allude to the point that we should be applying the law brutally and equally to everyone. Do you have anything else to add, Mr. Pai, to this?
You see, again, if you go back a little bit of history, all that is started in the last 15, 17 years. Started in Europe, right? In Europe, where the left lost out power. And, then they felt very weak. They were not having the narrative because of the fallen Soviet Union and things like that. They went to all the universities and then whipping up a narrative. When we have this Islamic jihadi terror, and let us say, jihadi terror is the largest quantum of terror in the world today. It is documented. And sadly, more Muslims are killed by the jihadi conference than anybody else. It is by Muslims against Muslims. Not by the jihadis against other communities. More Muslims are killed. That's a sad thing. That's why the Muslims should stand up against jihadi terror, and nobody should try to glamorize jihadi terror. A terrorist is a terrorist is a terrorist. A killer is a killer is a killer. I don't think we should give them any sway. Now what happened? The left states started playing on the sides because they're all liberal societies. When you're a liberal, how do you prove you're a liberal? You prove you're a liberal by taking the side of minorities. You prove you're a liberal by taking the side of underdogs. Of course, many of them are anti-Semitic. They don't take the side of the Jews because, they want to take the side of Palestine. They don't take the side of the Jews. They discriminate against the Jews because being liberal doesn't mean that you have to favor the Jews. In their mind, there's a bigoted mind. And then they started playing it up and creating this. Then money started flowing from certain parts of the world to all organizations because they want to buy influence. It all started after the Soviet occupied Afghanistan in a small way. And then it grew with money from the Middle East because then they favored all these people, their think tanks. You look at that Atlantic Group or something in America, one-sided views about India. I read an article about the CIA, which lied through its teeth, which said that, there is program, there's concentration camp in Assam, which is a joke because the NRC in Assam is run under the Supreme Court. It's not run by the government, under the Supreme Court. Even if you don't believe Supreme Court, there is no hope for you. So they try to create this fake narrative financed by everybody because the money comes there, and they try to play the victimhood card because you play the victimhood card, you can appeal to people to give money to your NGOs. Because if you need a cause, right, what are the causes you're going to have? So they play this cause, and that has spread now. And I think today, Kushal, there is reaction in the UK. People are standing up and saying these grooming gangs. People say for the grooming gangs, the police were very soft. Groups of Pakistani men, preying on young English girls. The grooming gangs, the crimes by all these people, shutting off whole areas in the UK, in Birmingham and others as Sharia areas, running Sharia court. We had one of them, I think a person called Chowdhury, went to Downing Street with women in full burqa covering the face to say that, look, we need Sharia law we need to make Sharia law official in the UK. We have to make UK a Sharia country. Now that's the kind of liberalism. Now people are protesting. People are protesting in Germany, and the right is coming up. That will not be good. I think the governments of the day should draw a line in the sand and make sure anybody who crosses the line will be facing the full force of law. Yes, it's a global phenomena which came out of this thing, but I think people all over are now realizing. That is why in the Middle East, they mended fences with India. And Minister M.J. Akbar has done a great job in explaining to the Middle East how India is the true friend and how Muslims are well taken care of. Even Saudi Arabia has realized if this goes on too long, they're going to be hit. All these countries will be hit. So they're very careful not to get these extremists and other places. So I do believe that, there's a reaction in the West that is coming up. and there's the reaction in the United States too coming up, and I think the reaction will balance it out.
All right. So Akshay had asked a question to you. He says, as you mentioned, that a lot of historical events like the Mopla riots too, we still do not win the perception battle. How does one win the perceptual battle? And I think it is incorrect, interconnected to another question that was asked by Bargu. He also asked that, how do you stem the hate? I just want to be very clear over here, Bargu. When you say hate, the hate is not from one side. Without taking names here, I see a lot of things now happening on the other side also that sometimes is just downright hatred towards Muslims. So I'm going to expand the rubric here. How do we control the narrative, Mr. Pai, where there is an obvious narrative peddled by a certain section of the media, and then there is now a certain section on the opposing side that is also trying to be far too extremist at times, where, see, a person like me gets lost. Yeah, people can say, well, you leave both of them and you come to podcasts like mine and have discussions, but that's not possible. I don't do a daily reporting. At best, we can do post facto analysis. So how do we solve this problem?
See, Kushal, today, if there's hatred from any bigoted Hindus, large numbers of Hindu communities stand up and bash them up. Don't you think so? We see a lot of them come up and bash them up, and the noise and the abuse them and all that. So I think there is enough opposition to any bigotry, hatred spun by misguided Hindus or some Hindus who have very medieval thoughts. Now, when it comes to Muslims and they try to push that kind of a narrative, I don't see the Muslim community pushing back. I want to see more Muslim community pushing back. It has to be led by their own community. If the Hindus push back, they'll be accused of being communal, this, that, and it'll grow again. And then if the Hindus push back to all these extremist views, then the Muslims will be on the defensive, because as it is, many of them suffer from an insecurity complex and they want to defend. And we have to set it right. Yesterday we had a very interesting debate on Twitter day before with Javed Akhtar, where Javed Akhtar said the Mughal era, India was a GDP of 30% of the world, and I pointed out it is not there. India's decline started during the Mughal era because we had Babur coming, destroying, taking away the wealth. Then we had his progeny coming, trying to have wars and destroying. And somebody said the Mughal era is the golden era of art and architecture here. And I said it doesn't become the golden era when you destroy many monuments of the original inhabitants of the country and you are coming from outside and trying to conquer them. And that is true because Indians got impoverished. And today morning, Javed Akhtar said the word Mughal means has come from the Mughals, is not come from the pharaohs anywhere. And I said the Mughals concentrated all the wealth, they were rapacious, they took away the wealth from the community, made Indians poor. And they had flaunted this wealth, they lived with extravagance, pomp, and pageantry. And that's why the word Mughal came. What does the word Mughal mean? One who lives with extravagance, pomp, and pageantry and show the riches. But where did the money come? And some people say the Mughals didn't take away money from India. Yes, they didn't take away money from India. They concentrated the money till Nadir Shah came from Persia and took away all their wealth. They took away the Koh-i-Noor. And I went to the Iranian central bank and I saw huge chests of gold, diamonds, pearl, precious stones, all put there. And all of it coming from India. It came from India, the loot. So you can imagine the wealth that was concentrated in one hands by them. You don't talk about the Vijayanagara Empire, where all communities were treated equally. At the end of it, the Vijayanagara Empire lost to the Bijapur Sultan because one of their Muslim commanders, and they were fighting for Vijayanagara, defected. You don't talk about that. You don't glorify that. You glorify the Mughals. I said, let us write our history with the truth. The good, the bad, the ugly. It is not one-sided. The Mughal era was not the golden era. You may feel it. So this kind of fake narratives. But here, we made sure there is no hatred, there is no bigotry. It's purely academic. And Abbas Masaldiyar from Bangalore, who's an architect, wrote very well, and he writes with full data and facts. So I think the key issue is, let's have debates, let's go with data, let's facts, let's not point fingers, no hatred, and let's join together to expose people who are focusing hatred. And let us understand, all of us are equal citizens, all of us have to live together, and all of us are protected by the Constitution.
Yeah, so one more question. I think Smeet, that answers your question, because Smeet's question was about the Mughal invaders and Javed Akhtar. So there's a question to me by Super Varun who says, does multiculturalism work in a democratic society? This is what the global elite leftists are pushing forward. Do you think all cultures can assimilate and coexist in a society without threatening other religions? Well, absolutely. And India has shown the way to do that, Varun. If you ask me, I think there is a misconception where a lot of people confuse relativism, which is moral relativism, where all there is no such thing as a objective good or bad, and every culture is equal. No, I don't agree with that. All ideas are not equal. Some ideas are bad, some ideas are good. So if somebody says, a religious text says women are inferior, I mean, I'm open. I'm a Nirishwarwadi. I'm a Nastic. I have never hidden it. I mean, this podcast is the Cārvāka podcast. I criticize religion whenever I have to. And my guests know that I never hide my reality of my life. But the point is, and as Mr. Pai said in this podcast itself, it is time to get rid of all the misogyny, and doesn't matter where it stems from. If it stems from A religion, you got to get rid of that. It stems from B religion, you got to get rid of that. And we can easily have our distinct identities. And I think India is a great platform and a great example of how you can have diversity. And it's not multiculturalism. I think what we need is pluralism. I think the right word, Varun, would be pluralism. We need to be a pluralistic society where we die for the right of each and every person to have their way to live, as long as, always remember, we don't violate what John Stuart Mill used to call the harm principle. So a very classic example of that is, if I can drink as much as I want to, but I cannot drink and drive, because then I harm everybody else. So that's the harm principle, to give you a very example. So as long as we do that, we're all good. We need to fight for our plural principles. The biggest problem that I find is, a lot of times people have this fetish for, the models that are existing in the West, where obviously multiculturalism has failed. It started in Canada in 1971, and multiculturalism became ghettoization of people. I don't want ghettoization of people. I want exchange of ideas. I want to learn from Southern India. I want to learn. The beauty of India has been that you can start with a dosa in the morning and you can end with a butter chicken in the evening. That is our beauty. And that's what we need to work for. That is the pluralism we have. That is the anekantwad we had. So I think that's my answer to that. Mr. Pai, do you have anything to add on that?
Kushal, Gandhiji said at one point of time, I want a Muslim to be a good Muslim. I want every Hindu to be a good Hindu. I want every Christian to be a good Christian. He didn't say, I want a Hindu to be like a Muslim or a Muslim like a Hindu, right? So we have to be what we are, and we have to be proud with what we are. And we need the personal space to be what we are. But we cannot come in the way of the other. For example, today, suddenly, Kushal, I see a lot of Muslim women covering the face and walking on the streets. They were always wearing burqas. It is fine. You wear the burqa, that is fine. But don't cover your face, because it's a public safety issue. When you go on the streets, you want to, you see the face of the person because you want to feel safe, right? If there are too many people covering the face and going, it's not correct. It's a public safety issue. That's where we should draw the line. Should we draw the line and say they should not wear burqas? No, it is their right. They can do what they want. I don't think we should interfere in how people think. But can they cover their face? Well, that is a public safety issue. So we got to draw the line where society has a prominence over anybody, individual rights, or whatever it is. Now, can you butcher an animal in the street? You can't butcher an animal in the street, whatever be there. Can you butcher an animal and sacrifice in the temple? You can't do that. That's unacceptable. It is okay at one point of time. Animal sacrifice, either in the home or in the street or in a temple or anywhere else, is not acceptable, because animals have to be eat. If you want to eat an animal, you got to do it in the abbatwa. There are places where you got to do it. That's the law, and the law we given ourselves. So we got to make sure social practices does not dominate the religious discourse when they're against what we accept as the law of the land and the values of this land. So I think what you said about pluralism is the right way. Multiculturalism in the Western context, because remember, they were all historically purely Christian countries. Now tell me, Kushal, just examine, when the American founding father wrote the Constitution, gave freedom of religion, did they mean freedom of religion for Islam, for Hinduism, for others? No. For them, freedom of religion meant within the Christian religion, I could be a Baptist, I could be a Methodist, I could be a Calvinist, I could be a Catholic, I could be anything else. And every one of them had the right of religious freedom. Because those days, in the majority, in mostly Christian countries, that is it. They didn't accept the religion of the American Indians, right? Indian Americans. The natives, they didn't accept them. They butchered them, right? They butchered them. They killed them, hunted them like animals. And they're all kosher for them. Where was the Constitution while protecting the Native Americans. He didn't protect them. So you must understand history. Multiculturalism comes because in largely Christian countries, suddenly they find people of other religions come and they say, how do we assimilate? How do you treat them with respect? Blah, blah, blah. So we got to be multicultural. India is already multicultural. India has been a melting pot for centuries, for hundreds of years. Even within Hinduism, everybody is different. You are different from me, but we both are Hindus. We are very different. You could be a non-believer and you could be a Hindu, but no other religion accepts a non-believer. And we must accept the fact that in Hinduism, you can be an atheist, you can still be a Hindu, but if you follow the Abrahamic faith, unless you believe in the book and you believe that your God is the only God and your prophet is the only prophet, you are not a true follower of that religion. Now, that kind of exclusivism is not there. That is India. India accepts every individual's right to follow his own path. There is no dogma in our society, except when you come to the Abrahamic faith, right? There is no dogma. You can all, that is the kind of country, that is pluralism. It has been in this country for so long, and that is what you must cherish. That is what you must expand.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that is what the aim of this discussion was too. I think it's time to wrap things up. And before I wrap things up, I just want to leave you guys with a few words. Look, whether it's Mr. Pai, whether it's me, whether it's all well-meaning people, we care about the social fabric of our society. But what is happening right now under the guise of these, so-called claims of Islamophobia, is there bigotry against Muslims in Indian society? Nobody can deny that. There are bigots in the Hindu side who are anti-Muslim. I'm never going to deny that. And anybody who watches my podcast knows I say it as I see it. But that's not the issue. There is bigotry against Hindus in the Muslim society too. Show me the discussion happening anywhere where Muslims are openly discussing, yeah, we should not be bigoted against Hindus. That is what we're trying to say. We're trying to raise the point of the asymmetry in the discourse. The problem is the asymmetry. The intent of this discussion is not to put anyone down. The intent of this discussion is to bring everyone up a pedestal so that we are all equal. At the end of the day, as Mr. Pai rightfully said, there are 20 crore Muslims in India. They're not going anywhere. They don't have to go anywhere. But what we want to do is the social indices, they lag so far behind in the social indices that we care for them. We want them to come up. Another small, anecdote I want to leave you guys with is there was a Bharat Muslim Mahila Andolan. I think it's an NGO that was fighting the case against triple talaq. You should read the kind of reports they produced where they showed how badly Muslim women suffer in India. And if we as Hindus, I'm very open about it. Yes, Mr. Pai and I are Hindus. We don't need to hide it. But we are Indians too. We have every right to be concerned about those 8 crore or 9 crore or 10 crore Muslim women as much as we are concerned about the 45 crore plus Hindu women. And every time we talk about problems in Islamic societies or Muslim communities in India, it doesn't mean we are Islamophobes. It just means we are concerned citizens. So I want everybody, when you're done watching this conversation, think about it. Have sympathy for the Muslims. Don't have anger for them. Sympathize with them, empathize with them, and try to have these conversations without bigotry. And once again, Mr. Pai, thanks a lot for sharing this information with us. And I really appreciate it. And kudos to you that you do so much research. You try to share the data. And this is what we have to do. We have to talk about the things that mainstream media doesn't talk about. So once again, Mr. Pai, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Kushal. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. I guess it's time to wrap things up. You know where to find me all the time. If you like what I'm doing over here, please subscribe to the channel, like it, leave your comments, share the podcast. If you want to support me, there is a membership option on YouTube and there is a Patreon option. The rest of the jazz. Until then, namaste. Take care. See you next time.